Ben Wiedemann is out front in eastern Ukraine along the front lines. Ben, you've spent a lot of time on those front lines in Bakhmut. You've seen the fighting up close, and we see what's happening here in the trenches in this video tonight. Things seem to be getting, if it's even possible to say it, even worse.
Yes, in fact, Aaron, it really is intensifying. We were in the area of Bakhmut yesterday where we saw a lot of outgoing and a lot of incoming fire. In fact, we spent some time with some anti-aircraft units there. They're dealing with basically weaponry that dates back to the 1970s. But what we saw was a real intensification of the fighting in that area. There are a lot of Ukrainian troops. Clearly, the Ukrainians are trying as hard as possible to hold on to the little part of the city of Bakhmut that they still control. Now, there's much anticipation and talk about a Ukrainian offensive coming up, and certainly in this part of Ukraine, in the eastern part of the country, what we see is a huge amount of troops and armor on the move. Also on the move is Patriot anti-missile systems. The Ukrainians announced today that a German-provided Patriot missile system has arrived in country. There's more weaponry on the way. We know that the Spanish are loading up Leopard 2 tanks to be sent to Ukraine. They are expected to be on the front line at the end of this month. Now, when this offensive is going to begin is not clear. The deputy defense minister today here said that they're not going to be publishing a timeline, that they're going to obviously keep that secret. But there's no question, just from what we've seen, that this offensive is coming. The question simply is, when is that going to happen, Aaron?
Ben, thank you very much. Along those front lines in eastern Ukraine. And I want to go now to Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. He's the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. And I appreciate your being with me. So you were just briefed about a recent leak of classified documents, some of which had to do with Ukraine. The leak suspect, we understand, of course, is that 21-year-old Air Force reservist. Did you get your questions answered today?
Not really. I mean, we didn't get any new information at the brief. I mean, the rough summary is basically the officials there, and we had officials from state in the intelligence community as well as DOD. They just said, look, we have procedures. Obviously, those procedures failed. We are investigating why and trying to figure out if we need new procedures. They didn't really give us a lot more information than that, and that's what we members of Congress are really interested in finding out. What happened here? Is there something we need to do differently, and how did it come to pass that this sensitive information was so easily spread so widely? So no, we didn't get answers to our questions just yet. And
so as far as we know right now, from what we do know, some of the leaked documents included intelligence, obviously, on the war in Ukraine. There were other topics as well. But National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told CNN, quote, "We still don't know the full scope of what's out there from the leak." So I understand they're not telling you, but I mean, do they even know? I mean, are you worried about what we don't yet know, or the fact that they don't yet seem to know the scale and scope in full?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm worried about that. We don't know the details, but I think you are quite correct in the way you assessed it. They don't know for sure what else might be out there. And those are the questions that we want answered. You know, what is the range of the documents that were sent out there, and then get back to, you know, how was it so easy for a 21-year-old IT operator to get access to this information and spread it? So we definitely need better answers to those questions.
So, we've been talking a lot, obviously, in recent days. Vladimir Kara-Murza, right, sentenced to 25 years. Alexei Navalny, imprisoned. More and more of those Putin deems his opposition, his enemies, imprisoned, some poisoned, others meeting bad ends. We have also been covering former Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili. He is now in prison in a hospital in Tbilisi. He says he was in prison because he's anti-Putin, and he's said he was poisoned by Russian agents. His lawyer told us that the DNA was tested, arsenic, among other things, at very high levels were found. I know you've seen this, Chairman, but when you look at Mikhail Saakashvili before prison and after, it is hard to look at. Saakashvili's lawyer says his health has deteriorated to the point where he's near death. They filed an urgent appeal to the European Court on Human Rights to get proper medical care, and President Zelensky of Ukraine says this is now the only way to save Saakashvili's life. Do you think more needs to be done by the United States to help Saakashvili?
I don't know what the options would be, but certainly the central problem here is the rogue state that is Russia and the way Putin is leading it, and the devastation that he's foisted upon Ukraine, but also all of the people who disagree with him who are dying mysteriously, as you said, being poisoned, falling out of buildings. I mean, look, the entire international community ought to unite against this and condemn Russia and condemn Putin for the way they are acting on the international stage. Certainly the U.S., we have 54 countries in our coalition helping in Ukraine, but there are a lot of other countries in the world that are sitting on the sidelines on this and empowering Putin to get away with this. We need to, shine a bright light on these atrocities and try to get the world community to unite against that, and frankly, get China to, do less cozying up to Russia and be aware of what Russia is doing. So yes, I think there is much more that a lot of nations can do.
Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, Erin.
All right, now out front now, Yulia Lapatina. She is Ukraine's Minister of Veterans Affairs. And Mr. Lapatina, I am grateful to speak to you tonight. We are seeing just bits of the reality of this war. That video from a trench battle where the soldiers are feet apart is a horror movie. But this is the reality that Ukrainian forces are facing every single day. And one of those leaked documents that we just talked about there with the congressman estimates that Ukraine has suffered up to 131,000 casualties, as many as 17,500 young troops killed just as of February. These numbers are truly impossible to imagine. Are they accurate?
I think, first of all, I want to express my gratitude for American nation, which has strongly supported our country. And I felt it here in Washington when simple people comes to me and ask me if I'm from Ukraine, and they say everything good things about supporting our country. And I think that there is no action which can influence of our strong partnership and our strong relations. Everything depends on the investigation, and the results of investigation will tell us the truth.
And you say the truth as in the number of casualties?
The truth about this situation and the number of casualties, it's not my occupation to tell about this because I don't have this information.
So Ukraine's death toll, whatever the exact number may be, right, is obviously a terrible loss, and has grown to such a level that I know you've been meeting with officials at Arlington Cemetery, right, which was built out of necessity to bury a large number of dead soldiers in the American Civil War. And I know that Ukraine, you've been planning and considering to build an Arlington-type cemetery in Ukraine. What impact is this war, this ongoing war with no end in sight right now, having on the Ukrainian people?
We are fighting for our independence, and today we had a visit to the Arlington Cemetery, and we had a communication with the chief staff of the administration of the cemetery, and we learned from American history and from American experience how important it is to memorize our heroes, your heroes, and it is also our opportunity and our responsibility of our ministry to create in Ukraine the National Memorial Cemetery. It will be in Kyiv, and now we have an adopted roadmap which is confirmed by our Prime Minister, and we will go through our steps to memorize our heroes. And it will be also very important for our people because we should memorize the heroes of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and also have a memorial to memorize all of our defenders from different historical periods. It also should be a place of interest for our foreign partners, which will come to Ukraine and see the price of our independence.
Just like a treasured mixtape from your favorite crush, the Prince mixtape is a reflection of all the care and passion, the big moments and small that made up a life, Prince's life, and it starts at the beginning.
and walk into the studio, you could hardly hear he's singing quieter than a mouse. I said, Prince, your singing so quiet I can't even record it.
Listen to the first episode of the Prince Mixtape on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app.
Now, ready for its next multi-billion-dollar defamation battle. This is from the Smartmatic voting company, which is suing Fox for $2.7 billion. And I just want to be clear, that is $1 billion more than Dominion was suing for. This is CNN has exclusive new reporting about exactly how Fox and Dominion came to that historic $787.5 million settlement beyond the 11th hour, right? The day and a half into when the trial was supposed to have started. Then they came to the settlement, the lengths that Fox was willing to go to in order to keep Tucker Carlson and Rupert Murdoch specifically off the witness stand. Danny Freeman has been doing the reporting, and he is out front.
The potential consequences of another defamation case loom on the horizon for Fox News. Even before Dominion filed its $1.6 billion lawsuit saying Fox knowingly lied about its voting machines, Smartmatic, a different voting technology company, filed a similar suit. This one seeking $2.7 billion in damages, accusing Fox News, several of its hosts, and Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani of falsely saying Smartmatic rigged the 2020 election. In its complaint, Smartmatic alleges Fox knowingly aired more than 100 false and misleading statements, including this one.
I have spoken with a few whistleblowers myself this weekend, and one source who is an IT specialist told me that he knows the software and specifically advised people in Texas, officials in Texas, not to use it. And yet he was overruled.
The company also argued Fox falsely claimed Smartmatic was linked to former Venezuela President Hugo Chavez.
Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez. After the Smartmatic electoral management system was put in place, he closely observed several elections where the results were manipulated using the Smartmatic software.
Fox denies wrongdoing, saying they were just covering the news, an argument the Dominion judge threw out. Smartmatic's case is currently still in the discovery phase at this time. Meanwhile, CNN has learned exclusive new details about how yesterday's $787 million Dominion settlement came to be. Sources tell CNN's Oliver Darcy and Marshall Cohen Fox and Dominion couldn't lock in a deal themselves over the weekend, so they called veteran mediator Jerry Roscoe. Roscoe, who has helped resolve wartime disputes in the Balkans, was on a cruise in Europe on Sunday when he was brought in a day before the trial was set to begin. After several Zoom meetings and phone calls, the deal was finalized around 2 Tuesday afternoon and signed just minutes before the judge announced the resolution in open court.
So, Danny, we're 24 hours past Fox settling the Dominion case, right? A historically large number. So now you've got Smartmatic looking at it going, well, they got $787.5 million. What about us? So what is Fox doing here? Are they doing anything differently about fighting this?
Well, Aaron, I think the best way to answer that question is to actually read you the statement that Fox News sent to CNN today after the Dominion settlement, but in reaction to this Smartmatic lawsuit coming up. A Fox spokesperson said in part, quote, "We will be ready to defend this case surrounding extremely newsworthy events when it goes to trial, likely in 2025. And Aaron, remember, that newsworthiness argument was one that the judge in the Dominion case threw out. But the quote goes on, "As a report prepared by our financial expert shows, Smartmatic's damages claims are implausible, disconnected from reality, and on its face intended to chill First Amendment freedoms." So, Aaron, I think that we should expect to hear a lot of the same arguments that Fox was using to defend in this particular case in Dominion, in Smartmatic, about the same issues for potentially 2 more years to come. Aaron?
Danny, thank you. It's incredible. I know it's not a legal precedent, but still, $787.5 million have been put on the table. So that's the precedent we're looking at. Thanks so much, Danny. And next, the man charged with shooting a black teenager who mistakenly showed up at his house appears in court today. Calls are now growing for hate crime charges and a federal investigation. Plus, a Kennedy taking on Joe Biden. Robert Kennedy Jr. is running for president, but a lot of his family is not voting for him. Tonight, the Missouri man charged with shooting a black teenager who mistakenly showed up at his house is pleading not guilty. 84-year-old Andrew Lester appeared in court today, facing 2 felony charges. This is almost a week after police say he shot 16-year-old Ralph Yarl in the head and arm at point-blank range. What happened was Yarl walked up to Lester's home, by accident. He had mistook it for another home nearby where his siblings were. So he was going to pick them up. He walks up to the wrong door and is shot. This comes amid growing calls for an investigation into how police have handled this case. Lucy Kafanov is out front.
Andrew Lester pleading not guilty and appearing for the first time in court today to face felony charges of assault in the first degree and armed criminal action after allegedly shooting 16-year-old Ralph Yarl when the teenager rang the wrong doorbell.
He seemed to be aware of his actions.
The victim's attorney saying Lester seemed competent during the court proceedings.
He was able to communicate with his attorney, and there didn't, to me, appear any diminished mental capacity that would explain his actions.
The 84-year-old, who has been released on bond, is charged with shooting Yarl twice through a glass storm door with a .32 caliber revolver. Prosecutors say there's no evidence Yarl ever crossed the threshold into Lester's home, and Lester told investigators the two never exchanged words. The case is becoming a political lightning rod. The Missouri governor now criticizing President Biden for using the case to make political statements about gun violence.
Justice for Ralph!
And there are protests in the community criticizing the handling of the suspect, who was released within hours after the shooting and got bail despite the charges. Lester's house, where the shooting took place almost a week ago, now vandalized. It's been pelted with eggs and covered by graffiti. And it's unclear where Lester is currently staying. The mayor of Kansas City saying he's worried that Lester is still a threat to the public.
I don't know what house he's in right now. I don't know if that's a house that the next Amazon driver or a postal worker or campaign worker may knock on the door for. And then what?
No hate crime charges have been filed in the case, but Lester referred to Yarl's size and race in his statements to investigators. According to the probable cause statement, Lester told investigators he saw a black male, approximately 6 feet tall, and he believed someone was attempting to break into the house and shot twice within a few seconds of opening the main door.
We're looking forward to a federal review of this case and federal charges as well.
Civil rights violations?
That's right.
The attorney posting an update on Yarl and a photo of them together, calling Ralph a walking miracle, saying he's recovering at home after suffering a traumatic brain injury.
I was blown away to be able to sit with Ralph on his porch and talk about music and talk about how this experience has been for him.
His family is now providing CNN with a rare glimpse into Yarl's early family life, including a photo of him with a younger brother, one of the twin brothers he'd set out to pick up the night he was shot.
In court today, Lester tried to speak with a judge, but he was not argumentative. Part of his bond conditions include reporting to police within 24 hours and then once a month afterwards. He cannot possess any weapons. He is supposed to surrender his passport and remain here in Missouri. He's also ordered not to have any contact with Ralph Yarl or his family. He is out on bond. He's expected back in court for the next procedural hearing on June 1st. Aaron?
Lucy, thank you very much. And I want to bring in Joey Jackson now, our legal analyst, criminal defense attorney. So, Joey, you look at this and obviously Lester may use the stand your ground law, which it does exist in Missouri, says someone can defend themselves from, quote, what he or she reasonably believes to be the use or imminent use of unlawful force. And you hear him say he thought someone was he sees a black man and they're almost 6 feet tall and he thinks they're going to rob him. Ralph Yarl was 16 years old, 5'8", 140 pounds, shows up at his door. Does this defense hold up?
We'll see. From early indications, Aaron, it would seem that it does not. Understand what stand your ground is. Stand your ground is not a license to shoot because you feel like it, because you're protected by this law. Stand your ground just doesn't give you the ability to indiscriminately start shooting because, hey, I think I'm being threatened. Stand your ground has a couple of components that are very significant. One is that you're in immediate fear of death or serious physical injury. So you have to articulate facts which indicate the immediacy of the fear.
Someone showing up at your door is not.
That in and of itself is not enough. Someone ringing your doorbell is not enough. What activities were engaged in that would give you the mindset, right, if you're the defendant?
Well, in fact, ringing your
case.
Doorbell would actually not indicate someone was showing up to rob
Generally,
you.
if someone's after you, they may not ring your doorbell, right? And the other component, Aaron, briefly, is you have to act reasonably, right? It's the immediacy of the fear, and then you have to act reasonably. And I guess if it goes this far, a jury would have to make the assessment based on these facts that we know. Was there immediate fear, and was there reasonableness? On the facts we know now, it doesn't appear.
Right. It was certainly not from the way you lay it out there. It doesn't meet those. So the 84-year-old suspect shows up today. He's struggling to sort of walk up to the judge at his arraignment. Do you think age is a factor in the defense?
So age, I'm sure the defense will play up that, right? But it's something is very important. You know, the fact that you're an older person does not give you the immediate ability to shoot someone because you think they're threatening you. It predicated.
Doesn't change the stand your ground tenets you just laid out.
There's nothing in the stand your ground law that says if you're over a certain age or you think that you're more susceptible to attack, you have to articulate facts. What did Yarl do? What did the teenager do who is 140 pounds and 5'8"?
Ringing your doorbell.
Ringing your doorbell that would be suggestive of an attack. In the absence of that, I don't care how old you are, just wouldn't hold up.
So the mayor of Kansas City now calling for investigation why the suspect was only held for 2 hours, joining the family. You've got others saying have this be a federal investigation, hate crime. Given what you're laying out here, do you think that that's where this should go?
I think it has to, right? Because you have to have a community that has trust in what law enforcement is doing. You had the prosecutor indicate why he did not charge hate. His rationale was that it represented an enhancement, and to the extent that the assault in the first degree, either you attempt to kill someone or attempt to do serious bodily harm, lands you in jail for 30 years. He didn't need the enhancement. That was his indication. The feds, of course, we have a federal government, has a hate crime law. Actual or perceived, if you act based on actual perceived, right, a threat or what have you, but it's predicated upon race, it's a hate crime, and that's a problem. They should investigate.
New tonight, a Kennedy running for president. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in a nearly 2-hour speech today, announcing he's running for president against Biden, railing against vaccines, too. Even members of his own family are refusing to support him. Jeff Zeleny is out front.
Political rally steeped in Kennedy family history, with one critical missing piece: most of the storied Kennedy family. Today in Boston, as he announced a long-shot presidential bid,
I am going to take back this country with your help.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. evoked images of his father and uncle as he bluntly acknowledged his siblings wish he wouldn't be launching a campaign to challenge President Biden.
There are other members of my family who are not here today.
With a famous political name, he plunged into the fringe of today's politics, railing against the safety of vaccines and what he calls corrupt corporate power in America.
Many of them also just plain disagree with me on issues like censorship, on war, on public health, and they are entitled to their beliefs, and I respect their opinions on them, and I love them back.
He's the third oldest child of Bobby and Ethel Kennedy, who once led crusades to clean up the Hudson and other rivers. But in recent years, he's ventured deep into conspiracy theories, drawing strong rebukes from medical experts for linking childhood vaccines to autism and other illnesses.
I'm not one of these people who've spent their life saying, I got to be really careful because one day I'm going to be in the White House. I actually did the opposite.
In a speech that went on for nearly 2 hours, Kennedy sought to tap into the lingering anger from COVID lockdowns, a pandemic where he too gained new prominence.
Don't fall for the one subject anti-vax thing. Keep an open mind, listen to him, listen to his message.
A lot of members of his own family wish he wasn't doing this, and they've kind of denounced him. What do you think about that?
Well, I come from a big Irish family, too. And, you know, I think that everybody's entitled to how they feel. Agree to disagree. That's what you have to do.
Kennedy's younger sister, Rory, telling CNN, "This is a difficult situation for me. I love my older brother, but due to a wide range of Bobby's positions, I'm supporting President Biden." His campaign handed out signs saying, "I'm a Kennedy Democrat," but some of the loudest cheers for his candidacy are actually coming from the right, including longtime Trump advisor Steve Bannon.
The longer he stays in this, the more his message gets out, it's going to resonate.
Kennedy denounced any coordination with allies of the former president, saying, "I have never discussed a presidential run with Mr. Bannon." Kennedy lives in Los Angeles, but chose the family's one-time citadel of power to make his announcement. Visitors to the Kennedy Presidential Library in Boston were not moved.
I can't stomach the anti-vaccine thing. The Kennedy name isn't enough.
For his part, Kennedy wrapped himself in the legacy of his family tree, by doing so, taking great liberty with historical comparisons.
We need to bring this party back to the party of FDR, of JFK, of RFK, of Martin Luther King, and those values. You know, in many ways, I have spent my lifetime preparing for this office.